Part 82. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 811. The members of Mingjing team all have the physical fitness of special forces. The two mechanical department members, Kraken and Zyajia, have the best marksmanship, and the others are not bad either. With more people against fewer, and with a few masters, they led Zhangma's gang and easily dealt with the remnants of Lian Hedong, Ao, and Afa. The enemy's subordinates were killed or injured, but several bosses survived. Ao and Afa were shot 2 or 3 times each, but their lives were not in danger. Brother Dong was miraculously unscathed. It is true that the waves behind push the waves ahead, and the new generation replaces the old. Lian Hedong couldn't help but sigh when he saw Zhangma and others. So you guys are in the same group. You joined Zhongxinyi just for today. I didn't expect that my big brother, who was a hero all his life, was still tricked by you. Lian Hedong laughed at himself and said, now there is no need to hide it. Are you undercover agents of the police? Or are you Huafu's people? Tell me the truth. Unfortunately, no one wanted to pay attention to him. Only when Zhangma came to his ear and whispered a few words, Lian Hedong's face calmed down and he stopped talking. Lian Hedong seemed to have misunderstood something, but his statement was not wrong from the surface. It is true that many things happened not long after the Mingjing team took over Zhongxinyi, which led to the complete collapse of Zhongxinyi. In the end, they ran out collectively to pick up the bargain. From this situation, it seems that several people in the Mingjing team really look like undercover agents. This is also a situation that reincarnationists often encounter. Except for reincarnationists like Xiaoming who have the ability to extend their stay in the reincarnation world. Other reincarnationists only have that long to complete their tasks. The plot will also be more concentrated, and generally, something will happen as soon as the reincarnation comes. It is reasonable to be regarded as an undercover, otherwise it will be regarded as a jinx. In fact, the task given to Mingjing team by the reincarnation space is just to deal with the traitors of Zhongxinyi. They are not required to take action against Zhongxinyi. The main reason why Mingjing team will take action against Zhongxinyi is Xiaoming's personal disgust for the underworld. As for the younger brothers of Luo Tianhong's gang, they have been subdued by Zhangma in recent days. A few diehards were either hypnotized by Xiaoming or quietly dealt with. It is hard to say about the team led by Luo Tianhong, but the combat effectiveness is really strong. This battle was clean and neat. It is too easy for them to kill the captured bosses such as Lian Hedong now. Let the police deal with it. Zhang Wen and others secretly made a move and injured their muscles and bones, so that they will never be able to use strength in their lives. Daily life is only slightly inconvenient, but if they want to beat someone up, there is nothing they can do. These people have their own small treasury and warehouses for storing supplies, which is also a windfall. Even Lian Hedong, who is heavily in debt, has some emergency reserves. Afa's property is even more, and he recently extorted 100 million from the boss. However, the Mingjing team is a reincarnation, and they are really not interested in their property. Just order the men to torture them here. No matter how much money is extorted from them, everyone will share it equally. Now the enthusiasm of all the younger brothers has been mobilized. The 3 former big brothers began to be tortured. Zhangma and others took this opportunity to slip away. The predetermined signal was issued, the sirens sounded, and countless police cars drove over from all directions, catching all these gangsters in one fell swoop. In this team, there was only one member of the Feng Guoxiyu team. Their main force should still be placed on the couple Lian Haolong and Susu. This is the home ground of the Mingjing team, and they are here to clean up the mess. This was agreed upon long ago. Before, Xiaoming borrowed the power of the Feng Guoxiyu team to help Lisa escape. In return for the favor, the credit for this achievement was given to him. It was clearly a fight against the world, but the two sides could actually work closely together. This level of trust is rare among the reincarnations. The score for this mission is estimated to be high. Lien Hatalong led several subordinates including Ahung to hunt down his wife Susu. Afa was just a subordinate. There were too many bosses betrayed by their subordinates these days, and Brother Long was not so upset. What was really puzzling was that his wife, who had been with him for many years, was the mastermind behind his betrayal. Why on earth was this? Lien Hatalong must get the answer. Susu's scheming was no less than Afa's, so she naturally notified other subordinates to help. In a critical moment, they could not care about leaking information. Instead, Lien Hatalong and others did not use all their strength, but only used the core strength. They were preparing in advance, and at this time, they were naturally afraid of leaking the news. They could not mobilize all their forces. On the one hand, they were afraid of leaking to the police, on the other hand, they were afraid of being discovered by Susu and Afa. Of course, they also had to guard against other gangs. Lien Hatalong thought that as long as his side was fully prepared, especially in terms of compulsory ammunition, at that time, they would have the upper hand by using more to defeat fewer and faster to defeat slower. Unexpectedly, no matter how careful Lien Hatalong and his team were, the mastermind behind this matter would not let him feel so comfortable. Mingjing team and Feng Guoxiyu joined forces. Not only the police would get accurate information at the critical moment, Susu and Afa also got the news one day in advance. This gave them time to make more preparations, and Lien Hatalong's fight was not smooth. Sister Susu's arrangement was different from Afa's. She did not let her remaining subordinates form a group to rescue directly, but dispersed them into several teams. Scattered in various locations, from the flank of Lien Hatalong's convoy, a dispersed harassment attack was carried out. This approach was very smart. If it was blocked head-on, it would definitely be hit by concentrated firepower and could not last long. The effect of flank harassment was much better. Every time there was harassment, Lien Hatalong's pursuit team had two choices: stop and fight, or send a small number of people to entangle, and the main force rushed over under the enemy's firepower. Lien Hatalong was eager to pursue Susu, so naturally he left a few people to fight against the harassment every time. The personnel gradually dispersed, and Ahung and others also stayed behind one by one. In the end, only Lien Hatalong's 3 cars were left to chase Sister Susu's 2 cars. At other locations, only a few people were entangled with each other, and they could still run away if they found the right opportunity. Just when Susu thought she had a chance to escape, her convoy was attacked by the Feng Guoxiyu team and broke down in the wild. Lien Hatalong's convoy ran into them from behind and they immediately engaged in close combat, crackling and fighting. Sister Susu herself had no fighting power, so she could only hide in the corner and wait for the final outcome. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 812. In terms of combat effectiveness, Lien Hatalong and his subordinates are the strongest. His gun skills are also very accurate. He may have served in the army and fought in wars in his early years. Not long after, all of Susu's subordinates were dealt with. Susu was usually very good to her subordinates, and their dying counterattack also caused considerable casualties to Lien Hatalong's subordinates. Just when Lien Hatalong wanted to ask his wife why she betrayed him, a group of flying tigers rushed out from nowhere, and after failing to persuade them to surrender, they started a fierce battle. Zhong Xinyi's side was already exhausted and out of ammunition and food. How could they be the opponent of the flying tigers' fresh forces? Under the hail of gunfire, Zhong Xinyi's elder brother and sister-in-law died on the spot. The bodies of the two still fell together in a pool of blood. In the original book, at this time, Lien Hatalong and Susu had a very classic dialogue about why Susu betrayed. Simply put, it was love that turned into hate. 30 years ago, when Susu was 16, she was a prostitute, and Lien Hatalong was just a thug who looked after the casino. At that time, the two depended on each other for survival. Lien Hatalong was addicted to gambling and lost all their money. Susu never blamed him and never left him. Susu still supported Lien Hatalong. The two shared a lunchbox and drank water from the tap together. In order to help him, Susu, who only graduated from elementary school, went to learn English and accounting. Zhongxinyi is what it is today, and she actually contributed a lot. It goes without saying how important finance is to a company. Especially in the underworld, the entire money laundering network of Zhongxinyi was established by Susu. If you don't understand this kind of thing, you won't know what's going on if you are cheated to death by others. Originally, Susu thought that as long as she loved Lien Hatalong wholeheartedly and helped Lien Hatalong, she would definitely get enough rewards. However, Lien Hatalong's marriage to Lisa as a concubine and the birth of a child and the full moon wine celebration completely hit her to the bottom. Susu was a prostitute and had 3 abortions. It was impossible for her to have another child. Lien Hatalong still married her as his wife. This was a manifestation of his love for her, which made her feel that all his efforts were worth it. But he made a big fuss for the son born by his concubine, and the whole of Hong Kong knew about it. He didn't care how much of a blow this was to his wife. From then on, let alone outsiders, I'm afraid that Lien Zhongxinyi's younger brothers would talk about Susu behind her back. That's how people are. There are 3 kinds of unfilial behavior, and the worst is to have no descendants. Lien Hatalong's thinking is very traditional. He wants to leave descendants for himself, which is understandable. But at a banquet, he trampled on his wife's face without a trace, which was really too much. After working together for 30 years, in the end, he didn't even have such a face. Susu and him became alienated because of this. She felt that this man no longer belonged to her, so of course she had to make plans for herself. If a person does not work for himself, he will be punished by heaven and earth. I have no food to eat, I am the only one who is hungry. Susu's last words completely left Lien Hatalong speechless. He also felt regretful. He was so happy about his son's full moon that he held a grand banquet. But he didn't care how much his wife lost face because of this. It's all his own fault. Every one of the high-level people in Zhongxinyi deserved to die. This is not to say that what Susu and Afa did was right. It's just that within the rules of the underworld, Susu's behavior is understandable. Lien Hatalong had nothing to say. This conversation between the two of them also untied everyone's knot. They can die calmly. Unfortunately, in this reincarnation world, the reincarnations of the Feng Guoxiya Guild watched the battle from afar. They were afraid that at this time, Lien Hatalong would shoot Susu and run away. So they launched the final general attack early. Sister Susu was full of grievances, and Lien Hatalong's mind was full of questions, but they all came to no conclusion and he died with his eyes open. Seeing such a big battle, Xiaoming was also very surprised. How could the Feng Guoxiya Guild have such a great ability? In this world, it only took a few days to mobilize the flying tigers. Awesome. It can only be said that Xiaoming is still too inexperienced and usually relies too much on his own energy. Xiaoming's understanding of the reincarnation space and the reincarnationists is still superficial. He doesn't understand many skills. In fact, the reincarnationists are a group that can create miracles. They are fearless and dare to do anything. Since most reincarnationists have limited strength, unlike Xiaoming, who can conquer the world with plug-ins. So the means they use are also strange. After all, in the mission world, the reincarnationists will not stay for a long time. Therefore, there is no need to consider the consequences in many cases. They can often do things that ordinary people can't do. If they are regular police in this world, they will definitely not forge various documents just to illegally mobilize the flying tigers once a day. Do you still want to get a promotion and a raise in the future? but the reincarnationists dare to do this. Anyway, I will return to the real world after finishing the work, so I don't need to think about the future. A mission world is over, and all the reincarnations return to the settlement space to receive rewards. After this, Feng Guoxiya Guild and Mingjing team have also established a good friendship. Both parties agreed to help each other in the future. However, this is just a verbal agreement, and how effective it can be depends on the specific situation. For this mission, Xiaoming took the lead and gave Feng Guoxiya a lot of benefits. The guild from Tianxiaoyagong to below is very grateful. At the same time, Tianxiaoyagong also understood that the vision of both parties is not at the same level. In his opinion, the scores and rewards are very important. Everyone in the Mingjing team actually looks like they don't care. No one takes Xiaoming's behavior of giving up his interests seriously, and no one has any objections. Tianxiaoyagong can see that they are not just pretending to be rich, but really don't take it to heart. This makes Tianxiaoyagong unable to even feel envious, jealous, and hateful. Damn, their vision is really too high. They are not on the same level at all. This is no wonder, there are a total of 6 members in the Mingjing team. Everyone does not need to rely on rewards to improve their personal strength. Yujiangguang Hanzayajuzhu and Xiao Xiao are both dragons, Kraken has alien technology, and Xiaoming, Xiaojing and Zhongwen all have Xiaoming's source energy to rely on. Scoring and rewards can only be regarded as icing on the cake for the Mingjing team. What really means to them is the countless wonderful reincarnation worlds here. Back to the settlement space, everyone in the Mingjing team found out, WTF. Why didn't Xiaoming come back together again? In the past, it was normal for Xiaoming not to act with everyone and not to come back together. My sister and brother Wen knew that Xiaoming used the power of the dragon trapping wristband to continue playing in a certain reincarnation world. However, in this mission, the leader obviously could not use supernatural energy, so he could not activate the dragon trapping wristband. How could this happen again? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 813. The problem lies with Yin Xiaoming. Together with Xiao Xiao, he protected Lian Haolong's young wife Lisa and left Hong Kong with his son. After passing Luohu Port, we took a train to the mainland. However, the limited scope of the world, like winning the commander-in-chief, is not set up to be that big. Not long after the train started, Xiaoming felt that he had crossed the boundary of the world. In the new world, all his supernatural powers came back. It is also a world with a very high energy level. However, Xiaoming, Xiao Xiao and Lisa were gone, and all the passengers in the same car with him were gone, as well as the train. To be precise, Xiaoming should have left the original train. Later, Xiaoming learned that Xiao Xiao only remembered that the train was walking, and the mission was completed. He returned to the settlement space with everyone. Alas, it's hard not to accept it. The reincarnation space's control over the reincarnation's time is simply superb. Xiaoming knew very well that when the train crossed the border of the world, the decisive battle for the leadership had not yet begun. At that time, Huang Xiaoming and Lu Xiaoming were still preparing for the decisive battle. In fact, he was being commanded by Karama to run around. He hypnotized some of the Tang's subordinates for his own use, and also framed 3 or 5 gangsters who probably wouldn't obey orders and couldn't be hypnotized into the police station. After the decisive battle, many loyal young and dangerous boys will enter the police station. It doesn't matter if they go in 2 days early. You can also avoid a murder. It was not until after the decisive battle that Huang Xiaoming and Lu Xiaoming left Hong Kong. Before that, Yin Xiaoming had already charged the trapped dragon wrist guard. In the new world, Yan Xiaoming looked around and found that he was still on a train. The passengers all looked European. It's strange, why does such a world have no power to suppress it? Taking a closer look, Xiaoming found a clue. The two people sitting in front of him turned out to be no ordinary people. One of the girls was talking to another bearded man. There was sadness in his voice. The first boy I kissed was in a coma in the hospital for 3 weeks, and now this happens to you. The girl choked with sobs and could no longer speak. Her life energy showed that she was extremely sad, and tears fell uncontrollably from her face. The big man was speechless, put his arm around her shoulders, and let her lean into his arms. The intimate movements between them give people the feeling of a father taking care of his daughter. Few people can understand how you feel after a long time, the bearded man said. But I think this person named Professor X is different. It seems that he really wants to help you, which is rare, for people like us. With that said, the train seemed to start, and the girl got up from the big man's arms and stared at him. It is estimated that the two of them will have a more warm conversation, if they are not interrupted by the ignorant guy. There was a loud bang, and the door of the carriage in front was kicked open, and a gust of cold wind, mixed with some snowflakes, rushed in. Everyone in the carriage couldn't help but shiver. Immediately after Feng Shui, two people rushed in and glanced at everyone in the carriage with a ferocious look. Some of the people avoided their gaze, while others glared at them. Some people have already yelled. "Who are you? Leave quickly, I'm calling the police." These two people are not afraid of the intimidation from passengers at all. He just stared at the four big eyes and scanned the car. The person who came here is not a good person. Considering the identity of himself and the girl, the big man immediately became vigilant and blocked the girl behind with his body. Unexpectedly, this action exposed both of them. The two men immediately discovered the goal of their trip. Seeing Wolverine's appearance, the two looked at each other, seemingly a little afraid. One of them, with the bald head, said to the bearded man, "Wolverine, don't let Professor X fool you. He wants mutants and humans to coexist peacefully. But there are always people in humans who are afraid of our abilities and covet our genes. For their own benefit, they will never stop persecuting us. Only Lord Magneto can truly allow us mutants to live openly and honestly under the sun." Seeing that Wolverine seemed to be hesitating, another man who dyed his hair green said, "We kid you not, right now, there are several agencies in the American government that are studying our compatriots. Test them like mice and slaughter them at will. Can you bear to watch your compatriots being so cruelly persecuted by humans?" As soon as these words came out, Wolverine seemed to be disdainful. He was used to being a Lone Ranger, so he didn't really care about other mutants. But the little naughty girl, that is, felt the same way. His expression also changed. Unlike Wolverine, she has the ability to properly protect herself, and she is more understanding of being discriminated against and persecuted. Seeing the change in her expression, the green-haired one became more confident. Continued. "I don't deny that, Professor. Wake up, even if only 20% of humans are hostile to us, it will be enough for us to exterminate our species." What he said actually made some sense. It seems like he is really worried about the future of mutants. Wolverine seemed a little shaken. After walking on Earth for decades, Wolverine has seen the ugliness of human beings most clearly. I am afraid that more than half of humans are hostile to mutants. More than 20%. Professor X is indeed a little naive. However, Xiaoming, who was watching, could clearly see that these two guys were clearly two reincarnators. None of what they said was true, they were just said to distract Wolverine based on their understanding of Wolverine and the Rugrats. In fact, deep down in their hearts, the fate of mutants is worthless. They only care about what power they can get in this world. The purpose of their trip is to catch the little naughty boy. Wolverine is not important. It's just that Wolverine's fighting power is too strong. In line with the principle of gentlemen using words but not using hands, the two plan to use words to defeat Wolverine. As for Wolverine and Rugrat, their life energy looks much better. Both of them are relatively kind-hearted. It was clear who he should help. Ahem, ahem, Xiao Ming coughed twice, and after attracting everyone's attention, he asked. It's like what you two said so well? Then why are your companions attacking the two mutants outside? Why have you always been ill-intentioned towards this little girl? Those who talk about right and wrong are right and wrong. If you are really so upright, you won't come here to attack me. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 814. Wolverine may not have a high IQ, but he has a lot of experience, and he has the instincts of a wild animal. Although the two reincarnationists spoke beautifully, Wolverine could clearly feel their hostility. The wolf hair on his body stood up. Even if Xiao Ming did not warn him, Wolverine would not be fooled in the end. Of course, Xiao Ming has always been cautious, so how could he be so popular? The one who really warned him was not Yin Xiao Ming himself, but a 7 Stars shadow clone. Xiao Ming himself also changed his appearance to that of an ordinary European without others noticing. At the same time, the shadow clone appeared in the appearance of Morpheus. Morpheus? What the hell? What do you have to do here? Seeing the person who made trouble, the two reincarnationists were also confused. They happened to have come into contact with the Matrix and knew Morpheus's appearance. It was because they knew him that they were shocked. It was clearly a character in another reincarnation world plot. How could he appear in the world of X-Men 1? As far as they know, there are only two possibilities. 1. This is Morpheus. He was taken in as a follower by a certain reincarnationist and brought out of the reincarnation world. Morpheus is just an ordinary person in reality, but he has downloaded a lot of information in his mind, making him a very useful helper. Moreover, Morpheus's comprehension and intelligence are very high. As long as the reincarnationist is trained a little, he will also be a master in combat. It's just that this is difficult to do. Second, this is not Morpheus. It's a reincarnationist disguised or cosplaying, which is more reliable. I don't know if this is the reincarnationist himself, or a puppet, a mind beast or something like that. But since it's blocking the way, it must be cleared. The two reincarnationists stopped pretending and showed their true bodies at the same time. I saw the two of them stretched out their hands from behind their heads and tore off the human skin on their bodies completely, revealing the true bodies of two big insects. Xiao Ming had just come to the new world from a world that suppressed all energy. He had not yet adapted to it and did not activate circle and condensation. Instead, he was shocked by this change. Since he had not been to the world of Men in Black, he did not know that the image of these two bugs was the villain in Men in Black 1. Wow! Holy T! What is this? Wolverine, who was older than Xiao Ming and was considered to be knowledgeable, was also frightened by these two monsters and screamed. The scream of the little naughty was even louder. However, Wolverine relied on his immortal body and was not afraid. He wanted to rush forward alone. Suddenly, a hand was placed on his shoulder, and he was like Yin's hyping in another world, his whole body numb and unable to use any strength. Of course, it was Morpheus's clone who stopped him. Take good care of your little girl, I will deal with these two guys, Morpheus said calmly, then let go of his hand and walked towards the two big bugs. Although Xiao Ming knew that Xiaodoqi was definitely not Wolverine's daughter, at this time, saying so meant that Morpheus was just a passerby. Wolverine had fought all his life and had never encountered a master of internal skills. This experience made him horrified. A simple hand-holding action could completely make him lose his ability to move. Could it be a kind of flower kung fu? If this black guy attacked by surprise, he would definitely not be his opponent. Fortunately, This guy didn't seem to be an enemy. Originally, Wolverine thought that he had to go forward and fight hard. If he didn't control these two guys, Xiaodoqi would be easily affected. Now, unexpectedly, a capable helper came. This black guy who spoke up for justice was actually a top master. Wolverine felt relieved. Xiaoming was fearless. Morpheus was just a 7-star shadow clone and was not afraid of death. Besides, although these two reincarnations were in the form of insects, they were still human beings. Xiaoming could see it clearly by observing their souls. Maybe he had some adventure in the reincarnation world, which made him look like this. It seems that he is not the only one who turned into a bug. This bug's body is really strong, and with the cultivation of demonic power, the combat power of the two of them is about the high level of sea level. With diligent training, he will probably be able to reach B level soon. No wonder he is so confident. 2 against 1, if they cooperate well, they are indeed not afraid of B level Wolverine. But the opponent changed players on the spot. The 7-star shadow clone is a real B and to A level combat power level. How can he be afraid of these two C level guys? Let's practice with them first. Morpheus pulled out Cloud 6 Styles and Pakuto, swung it vigorously, and fought with the two big bugs. In the interval between the battle, he secretly used the telekinesis ability Retractable Love to bounce all the passengers far away. The battle between Morpheus and the two big bugs seemed very fierce. In fact, it was a one-sided situation. The two big insects' sickle-like forelimbs swung out blades and shadows all over the sky, and ordinary people would be seriously injured if they touched them. But Morpheus was a shadow clone, so he would not be injured even if he was chopped, and he was not afraid of this at all. And the Zanpakuto in his hand was definitely the weapon that creatures like monsters feared the most. The insects instinctively avoided the blade and did not dare to take it head-on. Besides, human reincarnations were not familiar with the body structure and action mode of insects, and they had all the attributes but could not use them. Although Xiaoming was the same in this regard, it would only take a few minutes to kill the two of them. Now I am just teasing them, and I am also familiar with the battles with aliens. Yin Xiaoming released the circle and included the 1-kilometer radius around it within the detection range. The train he was riding was intercepted by the enemy before it left the train station. On the outer platform, 4 mutants were fighting each other. You can tell the camps of these 4 mutants by looking at their appearance. The handsome guy with lasers in his eyes and the white-haired black beauty who can control the weather are both characters in the Justice camp. The mutants fighting against them, one looks like a toad and the other is as strong as a bear. With such appearance, if they are not villains, they will be sorry for the audience. It was Cyclops and Storm, fighting against Sabretooth and Toad. They fought fiercely. Xiaoming was too lazy to pay attention. Because within the range of the circle, there was an extremely powerful existence that attracted all of Xiaoming's attention. The mutant who can control magnetism, Magneto, an A-level master. He controlled the metal boots and belt on his body, making himself float forward in the air. He was really arrogant. But his behavior was simply a waste of energy. Xiaoming's energy reserves were countless times his, but he would never waste it meaninglessly like this. Don't pretend to be cool, or you will be struck by lightning. Xiaoming could only recite this famous saying to make himself less jealous. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 815. Now that Xiaoming is upset, it is impossible for Laowan to continue pretending. In fact, he didn't even know what was wrong with him. It was flying in the sky when the back of my head hurt and I fainted. Could it be that he had a sudden stroke? Cerebral congestion? When Magneto woke up, he was already in a strange cage. It seemed to be a solitary room, with no metal objects inside or outside. It seems that the other party knows me very well. It's over, Don't fall into the hands of the treacherous military of the United States, Magneto thought to himself. How did I get captured? I actually have no memory at all. Who on earth has such a great ability? However, Lao Wan still maintained his gentlemanly demeanor. Asked loudly. Is there anyone? Is there someone in charge? Come out and speak. Don't keep me waiting too long. As soon as he finished speaking, two figures crossed the wall of the confinement room and strolled over. It's just a handsome guy in the lead. But why is the person following him still carrying a pair of wings and wearing a suit of armor? Cosplay. Lao Wan's intuition was very keen. After taking a closer look, he found that the armor and wings were not fake, but actually grew on that person. In this case, this mutant at least has flight and strong defense. A strategic arm. It's strange. Over the past few decades, Lao Wan has seen thousands of mutants, but he has never seen such a mutant. But in a blink of an eye, his attention was attracted by the two people's wall penetration skills. Illusion. Or can this wall be passed through directly? Even though it's unlikely, try it anyway. Lao Wan quietly took 2 steps back and secretly touched the wall with his hand. Sure enough, he couldn't get through. How did he know that this cage was not a physical wall at all, but a barrier formed by Xiao Ming's spiritual power? What can pass and what cannot pass have all been said. This magical spell is beyond Magneto's knowledge. Mr. Magneto, are you awake? Are you okay, Neo, the shadow clone of 7 Lights, asked politely. Who are you? You don't look like an army or an intelligence agency. Why did you attack me? How are my subordinates? Lao Wan asked the question without answering. Don't worry, your subordinates are all fine. They were just persuaded to leave by us. There is a man named Saber-Toothed Tiger who is unwilling to leave and is staying with us temporarily like you, Xiao Ming replied with a smile. Persuade you to leave? To put it nicely, he must be unable to fight and run away. However, listening to the meaning of the other party's words, it did not harm the lives of his subordinates. The saber-toothed tiger didn't run away, he was just captured. Magneto felt relieved and asked, I wonder who you are? What organization do you belong to? What do you want to do by inviting me here today? After hearing his question, Xiao Ming smiled instead, stopped calling him sir, and spoke back. Oh, Lao Wan. Your way of shirking the blame is really refreshing and refined. I would like to ask you, what are your intentions when you bring a large team of people to invite a little girl? Magneto's rare face turned red, and he was arrested instead of arresting others. He seemed to have nothing to complain about. But then again, who are you? Is it your turn to take the lead? Lao Wan did not consider whether what he was doing was tenable, and immediately asked, who are you? Why do you care about our mutants' affairs? Haha, Neo's clone sneered, Old Wan, don't take yourself too seriously. Whoever gave you the power can decide the fate of any mutant. Besides, we are mutants too. Neo pointed at Zhang Zhou beside him, then pointed at himself and said. Little Naughty is our friend, and you and Little Naughty have never met. Do you think we are qualified to take care of him? Of course, the term friend is a bit forced, as Xiao Ming had just met Rugrats, Wolverine, and others not long ago. The Zhang Zhou beside him is actually only 1/6 of Zhang Zhou's body. Since acquiring some of the abilities of Lord of Flies, Zhang Zhou has been scattered in Guangmingding. When all of them are put together, they are A level. It will be more stressful for Guangmingding to accommodate him. If there is another A level, it will be more difficult. Divided into 6 bodies, that's 6 B-class individuals. A bright roof will make you feel much more comfortable. If Zhang Zhou splits into hundreds of pigeon-sized bodies, each of which is only D level, no matter how many times more Guangmingding is, there will be no pressure. So today, Zhang Zhou has basically been dispersed for a long time, and Zhang Zhou's clones are everywhere in Guangmingding. It only comes together when it needs to, like now. However, it was not Zhang Zhong who had just defeated Magneto with one blow, but nephew Bit, the Catwoman who lived in Kunlun, who took action personally. Before entering the reincarnation space, Xiao Ming recalled Zhang Zhong, Nephibit and other subordinates to Guangmingding and Kunlun. After entering the world of reincarnation, they are all helpful. Lobster Brabuda, the former leader of the Chimera Ant Division who has been conquered by Xiao Ming and transformed into an insect human, also wants to play along. It's just that his B-level combat power is a bit too space-consuming. This time Xiao Ming did not take him with him. Mr. Lobster was so frustrated that several of his whiskers fell out. In fact, the top management of the real Chimera Ant are also very interested in the reincarnation space. It's a pity that the Ant King Miluim and the guard Yuppie have recovered a lot of strength now, and Xiao Ming's bright dome really can't accommodate them. Al Yapfa could send a clone to follow, but all the affairs of the Chimera Ants are on him. He is so busy now, he flies, and even his combat power is not as fast as the Ant King and his friends. He really doesn't have the extra experience to explore the reincarnation world. More importantly, he already knows that the speed of time will be different between the reincarnation space and the demon world where he lives. It is still unknown what impact this situation will have on his Fly King ability. He dare not take risks at this time. He must wait until the Chimera Ants gain a foothold in the demon world and the strength of the three leaders is fully restored, then consider how to explore the reincarnation space. You can't eat hot tofu in a hurry, so you should be more cautious now. Besides, the vastness of the demon world in Yu Yu Hakusho is already a world that can't be explored. The reincarnation space is just the icing on the cake. As a result, all supernatural energy is prohibited in this reincarnation world. Guangmingding and Kunlun have been closed for the past few days. Others had already gotten used to it. There were games provided by Maomoer and Xiaosheneng in Guangmingding, so no one cared. Only Neferpitua was bored. There were no games in Kunlun, so she had to play with the queen insects, which was not very interesting. Finally, they could fight, so she naturally took the lead. Laowan and the saber-toothed tiger were both knocked out by her. The toad was too ugly, so she was too lazy to fight. As for the two big insects transformed by the reincarnations, they were all beaten away by Morpheus's clone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 816. In the world of X-Men 1, Magneto Eric Lanzhair and Professor X Charles Xavier are both A-level strongmen. Some other mutants also have A-level potential, but they have not yet developed their superpowers to this extent. Professor X has been in a wheelchair due to his mobility problems. He usually only plays a supporting role and rarely charges into battle. It is not so important to protect himself, because his X-Men will always protect him. Magneto is different. He is in good health. Although he is a man in his 40s, he still likes to fight on the front line. Magneto's ability is to manipulate magnetic fields and further manipulate metals. To exert this ability, he has to go to the front line in person. And he seems to be very persistent in pretending to be X, and his own protection is not good. This is also because there are indeed few people in this world who can compete with him in close combat. Magneto does not have a sense of urgency in this regard. In Xiao Ming's opinion, the profession of mecha driver is actually very suitable for Magneto. He should get a full-body armor like Iron Man and protect himself tightly. The armor can also carry a large number of weapons. First, he is invincible. Then he uses the power of the armor to deal with the enemy. He can be much more powerful than Iron Man. And if you underestimate your own protection, you will suffer the consequences. Lao Wan's A-level combat power is fully reflected in his special functions. He has more than enough attack, less defense, and weaker vitality. Most mutants are in this situation, so in terms of combat, mutants with physical mutation series have more advantages. And Neferpilot, the Catwoman with the same A-level combat power, is almost an all-round player. She is almost invincible in close combat. With her speed, after coming out of Kunlun, she sprinted towards Magneto in the air and knocked him down in less than 0.1 seconds. Lao Wan didn't even notice the appearance of this enemy, and he had already fallen. If Xiao Ming hadn't allowed Neferpilot to kill, he would have been a corpse now. After several plot characters were dealt with, the two reincarnations turned around and ran away. Their life energy was a little dark, but it was not to the extent of being extremely evil, so Xiao Ming did not kill them. He planned to wait and see. While Magneto and Sabretooth were unconscious, Xiao Ming drew some of their blood and also obtained some hair and skin tissue. At this time, the Insect King Green Xiao Ming had not left the Taking the Master world, so he could not absorb these things in person. Xiao Ming had to store them temporarily. However, Silver Xiao Ming drank 2 sips of their blood and used the ability of sucking blood and reading minds. He also knew about the background of these two people. It's a pity that Magneto is too old and can't suck too much of his blood. Sabretooth is physically strong, so it doesn't matter if he sucks more blood, but the experience of this big fool is not interesting. Xiao Ming is too lazy to delve into it. Before Magneto woke up, Professor X first established contact with Xiao Ming through brain waves. Professor X has special abilities such as telepathy and mental control. He is very strong in mental power. But that is only the 5th order mental power. How can he be compared with Xiao Ming? Xiao Ming has been strengthened by the Zerg spiritual sea, the goddess Eva, and many other means. 2 6th level and 1 7th level. In terms of application, Xiao Ming is naturally far less skilled than Professor X. However, in terms of quantity, Professor X is far behind. Moreover, Professor X and Freddy have the same problem, always directly invading other people's spiritual realm. In their world, no one can compete with them in terms of spiritual power, so they are so unscrupulous. When they meet Xiao Ming, they are completely finished. Professor X, who invaded Xiao Ming's spiritual realm, entered the moon reading at the first time, and was directly imprisoned. Although Professor X was panicked, he was also very confident. He had a cordial and friendly exchange with Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming's habit is that as long as the other party is a good person or a person with few sins, he will not kill him if he can. This is not Xiao Ming's heart attack, but he does not want to bear this cause and effect. Xiao Ming has been practicing for a long time now. He knows that a person can deceive others, but cannot deceive himself. If you know that the other person does not deserve to die and you are fully capable of letting him go, but you still want to kill him, that is intentional evil, self-deception, and heavy damage to your spirit and soul. So the good people who fall into Xiao Ming's hands are the safest. Professor X is such a good person. Although he has made mistakes and caused some bad consequences. But his starting point is always to help others. This is the kind of good person Xiao Ming will not hurt. Since you can't hit him, you can only scold him. Xiao Ming and Professor X discussed for a long time in the world of Tsukuyomi, only a moment in the real world. He severely criticized his methods. He really thinks too much of humans and human society. The defense facilities of the mutant school are obviously insufficient. Just like what the two reincarnations said. Even if most humans don't mind mutants, as long as a small number of them do, it is dangerous enough. What's more, humans are a forgetful race that is easily incited. As long as those in power or people with ulterior motives fabricate and spread some fake news, the mutants will fall into a dilemma of being hunted down by everyone overnight. For example, if you control a few mutants and let them massacre humans, most people will be hostile to mutants. Although this hostility is completely illogical. But who makes humans such a brainless race? Humans who originally had no malice may become malicious at any time. So as mutants, you must never lower your vigilance against humans. Professor X has supported a mutant school with his own strength, so that many mutants can have a safe living environment, which is a great thing. But even the professor himself is not vigilant enough about humans, and the students influenced by him are inevitably more naive. Have illusions about humans. Sooner or later, this school will be wiped out. After the professor dies, the school's protection power will be greatly reduced, and humans will definitely launch an attack. Even before the professor dies, as long as humans use some conspiracy and tricks to deal with the professor first, they can launch a large-scale attack. In a country like America, without extremely strong strength, it is impossible to guarantee one's own safety and freedom. The so-called freedom is always the freedom of the strong. If mutants want to be safe, they cannot rely on the kindness of humans, but must have the strength to protect themselves. The path of armed resistance chosen by Magneto is the future of mutants. But Magneto's approach is basically terrorism and racism, which is wrong again. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 817. The biggest problem with Magneto is that he not only puts mutants above ordinary humans, but he doesn't even care about the lives of ordinary humans. He and his subordinates treat human lives as worthless, and do whatever it takes to achieve their goals. They never care how many innocent people they kill. Isn't this turning the originally neutral humans into enemies? Isn't this stupid? There is no strategic vision at all. How many mutants are there on Earth? Tens of thousands? Hundreds of thousands? Hundreds of thousands at most. Most of them are A-level and D-level mutants with little strength. Many superpowers are just for fun and are actually useless. There are only a few hundred mutants with certain strength, and there are very few strong ones among them. With such a small number of people, how can they fight against billions of ordinary people on Earth? Besides, only a part of mutants are as jealous of the world and look down on ordinary humans as Magneto. Most mutants' parents and relatives are ordinary people. They all hope to live in peace with humans and not have such discrimination. Magneto's attitude of treating humans as grass has also excluded a large number of mutants. Think about a normal person, who would like to be told that his parents are of an inferior race. Even if he is superior, it is not worth being happy. Of course, Xiaoming agrees with Magneto's attitude of strictly guarding against humans. Professor X's idea is too naive. But in terms of methods, Xiaoming really dare not agree with Magneto's terrorist approach. On the contrary, Professor X's approach is worth reference. Xiaoming thinks that the first step for mutants to pursue living space is to establish a base where mutants can live well. Xiaoming even thought that he could transfer mutants to other reincarnation worlds like the Chimera ants. However, this idea was rejected by Professor. After Xiaoming pointed out the various reasons why humans cannot be trusted, Professor X, who has a deep understanding of human nature, actually knew this. But Professor X's approach is almost kneeling and licking humans. He helped the mutants to do a lot of things for the human beings, and prayed that the human authorities and the people would give the mutants some living space. This is simply impossible. The wisdom of the flower growers was clearly seen thousands of years ago. Humans are not a race that knows how to be grateful. Those who are not of my kind must have different hearts, which is the creed of humans, especially those in power. This sentence seems to make sense, but in fact, even among humans, their hearts must be different. Race is just an excuse. In this world, World War I and World War II were wars launched by humans against humans, and had nothing to do with race. However, Magneto's approach was even more unreliable, and Professor X could not find a better way for a while. The future of mutants is worth worrying about. Xiaoming, a mutant who is stronger than him and Magneto, appeared, and his character seemed to be kind. This gave Charles Xavier hope again. As for why Xiaoming's plan to immigrate to other worlds was denied? That's because mutants were originally born from ordinary people. It's just that the genes mutated during the genetic process. Even if all the mutants on Earth are transferred away now, what will happen in the future? Wouldn't the mutants who continue to be born be even more helpless and at the mercy of others? So Professor X cannot leave, and the mutants must never give up the Earth. Establishing a base was originally Professor X's idea, but the school he established was too small and did not have enough defense. He has been seeking to reach some kind of agreement with the American traitor government to ensure his own safety. But doing so is tantamount to seeking the skin of a tiger. The American traitor government has repeatedly used mutants, and has been ungrateful and stabbed mutants in the back many times. The professor has personally experienced it. The characteristic of this government is that money is supreme, and for the sake of profit, it does not care about any ethics and shame. Mutants must master enough power to make people afraid, so that they can truly establish a survival base for mutants. At the same time, it is also necessary to ensure that this power cannot be abused, otherwise Xiaoming will erect a powerful enemy for the humans in this world. Although Xiaoming is very dissatisfied with the American traitor government in this world, but the people are still innocent. We can't let the common people suffer just because we don't like this government. Therefore, the specific details still need to be discussed with Professor X and various forces. Professor X took Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine, Rogue, and Morpheus's clone back to school. Yin Xiaoming put on an invisible uniform and followed secretly. Xiaoming's invisibility has been tested, and generally a sharp-feeling A-level strongman can find clues. However, Professor X's strength has been too thoroughly understood by Xiaoming. Knowing how to prevent it, Charles's ability is helpless against him. Xiaoming set up several barriers in Bright Summit, which is equivalent to prisons, and imprisoned Magneto and Sabretooth respectively. After Magneto woke up, Xiaoming met with Magneto with Neo's clone. After a few words at the beginning, Xiaoming criticized Magneto's actions as worthless. What kind of person is Magneto? An absolute hero. How could he be so easily convinced by Xiaoming? Even if Xiaoming had some truth in what he said, he still thought that everything he did was just overcorrecting. After mutants take over the dominant position, it won't be too late to change back. Extraordinary measures should be adopted in extraordinary times. In his heart, mutants are the representatives of human evolution, a better race, and the progress of the world. It is an inevitable trend for mutants to replace humans. Any human who blocks this process is against the general trend of the world, and it is not a pity to die. Damn it! Xiaoming is also a little angry. Humans are indeed progressing, but they can't even abandon their ancestors just because they are progressing. Without ancestors, how can you be who you are now? Because of your own strength, you betray your parents who gave birth to you. How terrible and ungrateful. Originally, Xiaoming still had some respect for Magneto. Now it seems that this old man may have gone crazy and become a little psychopathic. In his subconscious, he regards the theory of mutant supremacy as the first truth, and everything else that conflicts with this truth must give way. Even the affection between parents is suppressed. This is also related to Lao Wan's childhood experience. As a mutant, he suffered a lot when he was a child because of his bloodline. He was caught by the police for research. As a result, he is proud of his mutant bloodline and believes that humans are a low-level race. His persecution of himself stems from his fear of the higher races. Mutants are the general trend of the future. For this reason, low-level humans should give way to higher races and accept the rule of mutants. His idea coincides with Voldemort in the Harry Potter world. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 818. Professor X, who returned to the school, wanted to gather several senior executives together to discuss. However, Storm temporarily accompanied the Seven Shadows clone Morpheus to visit the mutant school. Wolverine took Rogue to rest. Cyclops was slightly injured in the battle, and Jean Grey took him to the infirmary for treatment. In the end, only Professor X and Hank McCoy, the Beast, discussed it separately. In principle, he agreed with Xiao Ming's suggestion, but the specific situation would take some time to implement. Anyway, this matter needs to be considered in the long run, so there is no rush. Since Cyclops was injured, Morpheus' clone ran to show off his healing skills. Cyclops' injury was not serious, and a few healing skills were enough. After this incident, he and Jean had a great impression of Morpheus. After visiting the school, Xiao Ming found that this school was indeed as peaceful as he knew. These young mutants who were studying there lacked sufficient training. They were simply unable to deal with the malice from humans. Now the mutant race is facing a crisis of life and death, and these boys and girls are just like ordinary high school students, busy talking about love. What should I do in the future? Suddenly Xiao Ming found out, why are there two students who look exactly the same, twins? It doesn't look like it. For twins, the life energy usually has many similarities. The difference in the life energy of these two students is simply too big. This one is kind and innocent, obviously a real student. And this fake one is definitely not a good person, and it is estimated that there are many lives on his hands. Coincidentally, because Professor X's spirit visited Xiao Ming's Tsukuyomi world, it was inevitably eaten by Tsukuyomi. Xiao Ming basically mastered 50–60% of his skills. Xiao Ming easily probed his mental power into this person's mind. It turned out that she, was a capable subordinate of Magneto, Mystique, whose ability was to imitate anyone, including DNA, fingerprints, irises, etc. This ability is quite interesting. Yin Xiaoming, who was walking around the school in stealth, knocked Mystique unconscious with one hand and stuffed her into the Bright Summit, the same treatment as Magneto. Through blood-sucking, we learned that the reason why Rogue left was because Mystique turned into the appearance of Iceman and lied to Rogue. In addition, Mystique also tampered with Professor X's brainwave amplifier. Once Professor X uses the brainwave amplifier, he will be poisoned. Xiaoming quickly informed Professor X of this matter, and everyone checked it with doubts, and it really happened. This scared everyone in the X-Men. They thanked Morpheus repeatedly and were grateful. At the same time, everyone also knew the various things that Mystique had done after sneaking in, and the misunderstanding between Rogue and Wolverine was resolved. The brainwave amplifier seemed to be a very powerful thing, but it was very useful to Professor X, but it was ineffective for Xiaoming. Professor X and Jean both converted their own mental power into human brainwaves and sent them out to exert their effects. This is their instinctive practice. But Xiaoming originally used mental power, and there was no step of converting it into brainwaves, so naturally he couldn't use this instrument. Besides, this instrument also has its upper limit. The strongest power depends on how much energy it can mobilize. The energy that Xiaoming can mobilize by himself far exceeds the upper limit of this instrument. It is indeed useless. The truly valuable things are Professor X's various skills. He has honed his skills for decades and is indeed outstanding. Without further ado, Yin Xiaoming and Morpheus's clone have stayed in the mutant school for a week. On the one hand, he discussed a plan in detail with Professor X and others. On the other hand, Yin Xiaoming quietly collected a lot of blood and body tissues from all the mutants in the school. Especially Wolverine's, he has almost unlimited recovery ability, which is stronger than the regeneration ability of the insect man, so it doesn't matter if he collects more. Xiaoming is very envious of his ability. At the same time, the world of the Legend of the Condor Heroes has ended, and Huang Xiaoming and Green Xiaoming have crossed the world boundary and came to the world of X-Men 1. Yin Xiaoming collected mutant genes in school, while they searched for other valuable mutants around the world. While absorbing genes, they imprisoned several mutants who had committed many crimes in Bright Summit. Also imprisoned was Magneto's subordinate Toad. At this time, it was still the plot of X-Men 1, and Magneto only had 2 or 3 kittens. Some powerful mutants had not followed him yet. Only the mutants who had committed many crimes would be given the sword of rewarding good and punishing evil by Xiaoming. Magneto and his friends were not punished, because Xiaoming was not sure whether they should be punished. After all, they were fighting for the rights of mutants sincerely. The war of races has a certain justice. There were also some mutants who made minor mistakes or did not make any mistakes, but Xiaoming was too lazy to care about them. Because there were many bad people among humans, and only controlling mutants and not ordinary humans, wasn't this a double standard? If he cared about all of them, Xiaoming would not have that much free time. If he encounters a kind mutant, Xiaoming will also reward him with the sword of rewarding good and punishing evil. There are too few such mutants, and they deserve to be praised. In the final analysis, mutants are just ordinary people who have gained superpowers. Let's not talk about those useless superpowers. They can't do anything wrong, and they usually have to hide it. There is no question of good or evil. If they get stronger superpowers, most mutants will use them to do evil. Some people have self-control and know how to control themselves, and be careful not to hurt lives. When robbing, they also pay attention to leaving money for taxi rides home. But there are also many people who become more and more rampant, even worse than Magneto. Magneto is fighting for his ideals and the future of mutants. Some mutants simply enjoy the pleasure of destruction and killing. Such people are full of evil. As long as Xiaoming encounters them, they will definitely be locked up and tortured by the sword of rewarding good and punishing evil every day. Moreover, such mutants are very easy to identify, and their dark life energy is simply too conspicuous. Locking these people up early will also help improve the image of mutants in the hearts of humans. Of course, Xiaoming has just started doing this, and the number of mutants he has come into contact with is quite limited. Fortunately, the mutants today are not strong enough, so it is not very uncomfortable to be locked up in Guangmingding. Just like Magneto, although he is also an A-level existence, his weak body puts much less burden on Bright Summit than the average A-level. What Xiaoming is most pleased about is the arrival of the fox demon Kurama. With this think tank by his side, Xiaoming doesn't have to think about many things. This world with all kinds of superpowers deeply attracts Xiaoming. It is estimated that Xiaoming will stay in this world for a long time. Try to collect more and better genes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 819. Tell me, everyone, which of the places we just visited do you think is more suitable? Professor X, Beast, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Wolverine, and other mutants looked at each other. I didn't know what to say for a moment. To be honest, I have a word MMP, but I don't know whether to say it or not. Everything the leader did just now was really shocking. Several people just followed him stupidly. Even though it has been a long time since they came back, everyone still couldn't calm down their excitement. At this time, the one who was communicating with Professor X face to face was no longer Morpheus's 7 stars shadow clone. Since the wormhole skill was needed, Yin Xiaoming took the initiative to show up and meet everyone. 3/6 Zhang Zhong and Xiajia stood behind Yin Xiaoming. Zhang Zhong's insect-human appearance was already quite scary. As a transformer, Xiajia's steel body was tall and burly, which was more deterrent. Professor X brought several subordinates with him, so Yin Xiaoming had to show some face when he appeared. Charles had experienced Xiaoming's strength, but the other mutants didn't know. In order to prevent them from saying too much nonsense questioning his strength, or even having bad thoughts, Xiaoming showed a few cards first. These days, Professor X and Beast and others have talked privately many times. They thought that Xiaoming's establishment of a mutant base was nothing more than finding a place on the earth where few people go. Either deep mountains and old forests, or overseas islands, or even the Gobi Desert. But he never expected that the gap between his and others' speculations and reality was so far away. Xiaoming's first stop was still a place that everyone wanted and was easier to accept, the underground world. This includes various caves underground and karst caves in huge mountains. There are indeed many such places on the earth in reality. The inside of the cave has its own ecosystem, but this kind of cave system is not very friendly to humans. Relatively speaking, the human body is still too large in these systems, and the way of moving is also clumsy. Many of these naturally formed caves and passages cannot be passed by humans at all. Not to mention surviving underground. However, Xiaoming can solve all these problems. His alchemy can easily change the terrain, and it is no problem to find a modern residential area underground. A place that is too small or too dangerous can also be easily changed into a very safe place. The most important thing to pay attention to is the location of the base. It must be far away from the earthquake zone and placed in a place where the geological movement is very slight. It doesn't matter if there is no underground cave in this place at all. Xiaoming can directly build it with alchemy. In addition, Xiaoming can also solve the problem of no light underground. In addition to using the hacker energy system, there is also the plants versus zombies system that can do it. The torch stump and lantern grass produced in the system can provide light sources. The underground is also a very suitable area for mushroom growth. Sunlight mushrooms can provide sufficient spiritual energy for stumps and lantern grass. As long as there are enough, they can provide enough light sources for human survival, and even for farming. Of course, these two things are still a bit frustrated and not of high quality. As a fox demon who can control plants, the plants he got in the demon world are even more powerful. He and Xiaolu, two people, often do some research that others can't understand together. Combining demon power and Taoism, mixing demon world plants with props from Plants vs Zombies, they have created many interesting plant varieties. Sunlight moss is a low-end work that has been completed long ago. This plant comes from a demon world in Yu Yu Hakusho. As the name suggests, as long as it can grow, it can provide light for it. The raw materials needed for growth are nothing more than water, inorganic salts, and some minerals. Eating these things can grow and glow, and only the demon world can have such a magical species. The conditions for mutants to live in the underground world are fully met. With such favorable conditions, not to mention mutants, even weak humans can live well. But the underground world also has its disadvantages. That is, the possibility of being discovered by humans exists. Especially when humans in this world have a lot of black technology and can control some mutants, the safety factor of living underground is slightly lower. The second stop is the seabed. Although the technology of human beings on this earth is very advanced, the deep seabed is still beyond the reach of human beings. However, the environment under the sea is very cruel to both humans and mutants. In terms of materials, it doesn't matter. It is not difficult to build a base that is waterproof and can provide enough air. The biggest problem is pressure. I don't know if mutants can bear the pressure of the seabed for a long time. And after getting used to the pressure of the seabed, it may be difficult for mutants to return to the surface. In addition, transportation is not very convenient. If an underground base is built, you can rely on walking or vehicles as a means of transportation. For an underwater base, you can only rely on submarines. The probability of danger during the journey is also doubled. However, as long as you have a foothold on the seabed, maybe after hundreds of years of development, the mutant base may evolve into the legendary Atlantis. As long as the number of tribes increases, they can naturally compete with humans. If you can achieve this level, it's not bad. After seeing the underground and the seabed, Professor X felt that Xiaoming's arrangement was quite good. Unexpectedly, the next trip would subvert his worldview even more. Damn! Mutants can be so awesome, why didn't I know? The third stop is the Moon, the fourth stop is Mars, the fifth stop is Ceres and Vesta, the sixth stop is the seabed of Europa, the seventh stop is Pandora. Well, this world is not the Avatar world, although the closest star to the Sun, Alpha Centauri, does exist. But there is no planet Pandora in the galaxy, but there are still several planets and asteroids with harsh environments. Although it is impossible to build a survival base on the surface here, it is no problem to build a base underground. It should be safe to stay away from humans. Xiaoming relied on the space jump ability of the blue source energy to send the Insect King Green Xiaoming to this galaxy. Now that the Insect King has arrived, the two sides can communicate with each other to open the wormhole, and then send others over. To be honest, Xiaoming didn't have much hope for the last option, which was just created to scare the mutants. These options are getting farther and farther away from the Earth, and the difficulty of survival is getting higher and higher. But the biggest enemy of mutants is humans. The farther away from the Earth, the higher the safety factor of the mutant population. Which one should I choose? Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 820. Children only do multiple choice questions, adults of course want all. Professor X and others discussed for a long time, and the result was that they wanted all these bases. As the saying goes, a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. There are so many mutants, 5, 6, and 7 burrows are not too many. Charles, before starting to build a survival base, there is another more important thing to solve. Oh, you are talking about the question of what kind of social system should be adopted after the mutant base expands in scale. What? Do you still need to ask this? Of course it is the free democratic American election system. Hearing the conversation between the leader and the professor, Cyclops felt very strange and couldn't help but interrupt righteously. This kid is also a fool and bold. Facing such a powerful mutant as the leader, he dared to speak out and contradict. It seems that he lacks the beating of society. The other people, except Wolverine, had no interest in this, and Professor X and Beast had a brief chat with Xiaoming and were thoughtful. Others seemed to think that the American system itself was already very good. There was no need to discuss it. Haha, a frog in the well, Xiaoming sneered in his heart. He came from Pangostar. On this planet dominated by China, there is no American trader at all. The Chinese countries have various political systems, and most of them retain the royal family. Like the new Han state, the new Tang state, the new Chu state, these powerful countries, the royal family has a very high status in the country. It is not a rubber stamp. Of course, the royal family is definitely different from the emperors in the feudal society. They do not have the power of life and death, and they are not golden words. For the American trader, whose election system is like a talent show on the surface, but in fact, it is a country where money controls everything, Xiaoming simply disdains it. Xiaoming thinks that on the Earth in the parallel world, the strength of the American trader has something to do with its system that only looks at money, but that is also because it caught up with a specific historical period. The outbreak of World War I and World War II gave the American trader the opportunity to fish in troubled waters and come from behind. If it were placed on Pangostar, it would have been destroyed by the then later Qin dynasty before the World War. There is no possibility of development. From the history of the Earth after World War II, most countries that use the American system have no future. Even the Americans themselves are weak. Such a political system cannot be said to have no advantages, but it is really not a great system. However, facing these mutants who have been brainwashed by their own false propaganda, Xiaoming is too lazy to argue with them on this point. It is impossible to argue with the American people who always think they are superior. Xiaoming changed a new angle. Ladies and gentlemen, political systems are relative. Different systems are suitable for different groups of people. Not to mention mutants. What's wrong with mutants? Can't they enjoy democracy and freedom? Cyclops interrupted again. No, mutants have all kinds of extremely powerful abilities, such as Professor Charles. It's a pity not to use this ability in the social system. Oh, Jean, great thought, please tell me in detail. It's very simple, just like the professor often explores other people's minds now. We can amplify the professor's power and use it specifically to detect the black sheep in the mutant group. Black sheep? Do you mean mutant criminals? Storm asked. Yes, if there is a mutant like Magneto, when he gradually develops malicious intent, we can discover and prevent it in advance. What's wrong? Isn't this an invasion of other people's privacy? Cyclops muttered to himself, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Why? Because he is a die-hard supporter of Professor X, and Professor X uses telepathy everywhere, and with the help of brainwave amplifiers, he can even sense it on a global scale. Charles has violated the privacy of almost everyone in the world. Since Cyclops is a supporter of the professor, he is not qualified to talk about privacy issues. Is Professor X's behavior of exploring other people's minds an invasion of privacy? This topic is a taboo in the entire mutant school. The principal often does this, so what should the students do? Anyway, compared to being worried outside, students still prefer to stay in school. Privacy doesn't matter. Professor X's reputation accumulated over the years is still reliable. Xiaoming means that since it has come to this, we might as well make full use of this advantage. With Charles's mental ability, no one can lie in his mental communication. Using Professor X's ability, whether it is to filter candidates to join the base or to maintain the harmony and stability of the mutant base, it can play a miraculous role. Its role is probably similar to the real court in Zombie Covenant 2. By the way, you can consider using telekinesis as the cornerstone of the base in the future. I believe that in Zombie Covenant, the sacrifices that Wang Zhenzhen and Situ Fenren are willing to make should also be made by someone in this world. The current priority is to establish the base first. As for what to do after Professor X dies in the future, that will be studied later. With Xiaoming here, it is not so easy for Charles to die. Charles has a long life ahead of him. At the same time, safety will be a major selling point, or advantage, of the mutant base. A peaceful place without crime is very attractive to ordinary people, not to mention mutants. This base cannot be a place where only mutants can join, that would be too narrow. Mutants also have relatives, friends, brothers, and sisters. If there are any of them who are willing to come and live here, the base should also accept them. Only when humans and mutants live together will there be no racial barriers in the future. Mutants can always regard ordinary humans as a part of their lives. Knowing how to use your superpowers will not hurt ordinary people. This is also very important. If there are only mutants here, they may not be able to communicate normally with ordinary humans in the future. Xiaoming himself is not a mutant, let alone a pure human. So his position is relatively neutral. He does not intend to help any party oppress the other party. This is actually the biggest mistake of Magneto. If he does not look down on humans so much, he can recruit more humans in his organization. Mutants and humans fight shoulder to fight against the evil government and capitalists. Since mutants are the future, then mutants should be the saviors of mankind now, which is the route that Magneto should choose. Otherwise, nothing can be done with only a limited number of mutants.